Hi, thank you for joining this video on retention and why it's important. And to demonstrate this, we're going to show you a simulation of a troop with and without retention issues and try to make a point. Now, what is that point? The point is that retention is sometimes overlooked. We spend a lot of time recruiting, and one of the ways we get new scouts is, of course, we wait for our Webelos. That's a success if we get Webelos coming into the program, and we should try to do that as much as we can. I mean, there's a lot of good materials in scouting to help you figure out how to do that. And we might get some recruits that aren't in scouting, from school or friends of friends or something like that. And that too is a success. And then we do have that success, but of the negative aging out, right? Aging out's not negative. It hurts the numbers, but it's a huge success because we've actually kept scouts in the program, and that all the way to 18. So that's really good. But we have to think about replacing those two to keep our numbers at the same level for our troop. And then we have a real problem. These are scouts who leave our troop. They're bored. They find excitement or entertainment or challenges elsewhere, and they stop attending. And sometimes we know why they do that, and sometimes we don't. But one thing is for sure, if they were flourishing in your troop, they would stay. There are examples, plenty of examples, of great troops that can hold on to their older scouts. I just talked to a scoutmaster yesterday, and that was one of his proudest things. Scouts who didn't work for Eagle stayed until they were 18 because that was the kind of troop and environment that he had. So in other videos in this series and documents that I may share, we're going to try to give you some tricks and some ideas on how to make that work for you and for your troop. But one thing's for sure, it takes less effort to keep a scout than to recruit a new one. We spend a lot of effort on recruiting. Can we spend a same amount of effort on retaining? So let's take a look in our council. We have a great retention number reported out by National that we are 53rd of 248 councils. Our Great Trail Council retention rate 74%, and the national goal is 62. So we should be doing really, really well. But we can do better, and we can do a lot better. Over time, our troops have been shrinking in size. Now, is that because we don't have recruits? Is that because just number of youth around is lower in number? Or is it because we're not meeting the older youth's need? And that's what we want to take a look at as we go through here. And we have troops that have fallen from a maximum of 68 down to 47. 47 is still very impressive, but the average troop size has fallen from 25 to 17.6. So what we want to do is play a game. We're going to simulate a troop or two and see what happens with recruiting over time. Now, to do this, we got to define some terms. And one is what I define in terms of a troop assessment based on size and size alone. It's important to understand that a small troop could have a fantastic program and a large troop not. And by size alone, that's not necessarily enough. But I think what we find is that size and the things that make a good program go hand in hand. But stay with me on this. If a troop is only one patrol, they're in danger. And if they're 4 patrols or more, they're sustainable. Now, we're going to start with this definition and point out here that my name is Steve Myers, and I'm Assistant Council Commissioner in Great Trail Council, and trying to put some information out here for you. Another thing that we want to do is a definition of what we might call ages and stages. Many who've been around scouting and training have heard this a lot. But I need you to think about your troop as having 4 completely different groups of scouts. They're not all scouts. they're not all the same. And just based on age, you start with your new scouts. They don't really know what's going on. They're just excited as they can be. They get to go camping for the first time. And your experienced scouts who've certainly by age 13, they've kind of done it all. They've camped most of the places that you go. They've experienced this and that. They've camped in the cold. They've gone to summer camp perhaps. And clearly there are things that you can do to help your retention, like get those scouts to summer camp. That's a definite proven winner. But we're trying to go beyond that and think about some other issues. When we hit 14 and 15, we're in a group called younger adolescents and then older adolescents, 16 to 17. And these two groups couldn't be more different. If you don't meet the needs in each of those categories, your scouts are going to leave you. So we're going to play this game, and here's a troop simulator. Now, in this example, I start with a troop which has a size, you can see in year one, of 16 scouts. That's just slightly under our average right now in the council. So it's fairly typical, of a troop. And it also only has 20% of its scouts, 19% it says, of older scouts. Older in this case is 14 and up. Now, in this picture, we see a troop in year one at 16, and there's 16 scouts at the end of year seven. What happened? Well, in this case, all we're doing in our game is saying they're going to recruit 2 scouts a year. They're going to get a couple of scouts every year, and this is what's going to happen. Now, that's great. It'd be nice to make sure that you could have at least 2 scouts every year, but you're not growing. And in fact, you could very well, with one bad year or 2 bad years in a row, because this is not predictive, this doesn't guarantee you 2 scouts, you could be out of business. And that's not good for any of us. We need more troops and we need larger troops in order to really help young people flourish the way that they should be able to. So we could again play some game. We could say, okay, let's say we can recruit more than 2. We're going to recruit 4 scouts. All right, so I got to go in here and change that to a 4. Well, we get to 28. We've not quite doubled our troop by the end of 7 years, but we are getting into the stronger category. And in later years, we've got, a fair number of older scouts, and this is good. Okay. But that's probably not all we're going to do. But let's just stop right there for a moment. And let's say this is what's going to happen. You get 4 scouts a year. You start out with this troop of 16 in year one. And in addition to that, we're going to recruit some scouts out of the 12 and 13-year-olds. We're not going to recruit anyone older than that. It's kind of typical. Troops don't typically go after the older scout. It's thought to be a lost cause. You get them in early, you got to keep them, right? Well, at 12 years old, let's say that for every 12-year-old we have, 20% of them is the number that we're going to recruit. So if you have 5 kids in year one, you're going to recruit 1 more. So there it is. Now, what about if we do the same thing in the 13-year-olds, right? Now, if you look, the numbers went up slightly, all right? We got a couple of kids every year coming out of school, and we got 4 Weeblos every year. Again, as I said, we could hope to do better. And I want you to keep your eye on the numbers. We see a troop that's too small, growing through safety and into the strong category, all right, which is 4 patrols. Now, what about retention? We haven't considered it. We've assumed in this chart that everybody who joins stays. So what percentage, we might ask, are we going to be able to keep, or as the column says here, what percentage every year is going to leave? So let's assume that you don't lose anybody at 11 and 12 years old. In fact, let me hit you with a statistic from National. 50% of all scouts leave between the ages of 13 and 15. So look at the numbers. Look at the size of your troop after 7 years. Look at the chart. And now let's add in that retention rate. Here's a troop that's probably not going to recharter after very many years. They may not make it to 7. What happened? We put in the numbers that National says is the percentage of scouts that we lose. 50% between the ages of 13 and 15. You see a problem? How about if we try to approach this in a way that we lower those numbers of scouts leaving? Maybe we can't get back to 0. That's a great goal. But even if we go to 20%, we can start watching our troop grow and flourish a little bit more. Here, we've got up to 22, 21. We're in a safe range. We do a better job of recruiting, or we turn our recruiting number or our retention numbers around to where we keep even more. Are there ways to keep older scouts? Yes, and that will be coming at you in future communications. Now, what about a troop that just starts? Let's say we have a troop in year 1. They have 5 11-year-olds, and that's it. Now, I've left the retention numbers very low there, but 5 grows into 22 in this case. So we're going to get 4 scouts every year. We're going to get 20% of our 11 and 12-year-olds are going to come from the schools or non-Weeblo sources. And again, great if you can increase it above that. And then we may lose a few here, 20% or so. But what if we were to go back to that 50% retention rate? Instead of 22 after 7 years, we're down to 12. This troop never has a chance. It's going to be too small or in danger its entire life. That's not fair to the kids in that troop. What's fair is put on a program that will keep them and learn some tricks that will keep them. And that's what I hope to give you ideas about in coming videos and materials. Thanks for watching.